In this video, I'm going to give you a quick overview on Google BigQuery. All and more coming up. Hey there, Measure Geeks! Julian here, back with another video. Today we want to talk about Google BigQuery. Now, you might have heard of Google BigQuery. It has become more popular over the last few years that it has been out, really, because marketers who want to dive deeper into the data and take the data out of Google Analytics or your Facebook ads or Google ads and dive deeper into the data need a tool set in order to house that data and then do a little bit of an analysis. That's where Google BigQuery comes in. So in this video, I'm going to take you through Google BigQuery, the basic functionalities, so you'll be able to use it as well in your workflow and know what it's useful for. But this is in no means a full tutorial on Google BigQuery. There's much more to discover. If you are interested in finding out more about BigQuery, we're actually working on a course within our Measure Masters program. You can find a link down below. Now, we got lots to cover, so let's dive in. Today our journey starts at cloud.google.com/BigQuery because Google BigQuery is actually part of the Google Cloud Platform. Now, the Google Cloud Platform has many different tools. BigQuery is just one of those. Needless to say, you need to have a Google Cloud Platform account. You can create one for free, don't have to put in your credit card information, and if you don't want to upgrade, you can actually leave it at that. You can access BigQuery in the sandbox itself, which is quite limited, but sufficient for our demo today. So what is BigQuery exactly? Well, it says here, serverless, high scalable, and cost-effective cloud data warehouse designed for business agility. That's a handful. Really what you just need to remember is the data warehouse part. Google BigQuery can store our data, just like in a database. These databases can be huge and you can analyze them, transform your data, or process it further for your needs. Now, you might be familiar with this concept because you have been working with something like a spreadsheet before. Spreadsheet applications like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel also let you input data, just like this, in a table format. You have your columns up here, and then you can work with this data, for example, use formulas to calculate things. So for example, sum, and you get the sum of your column here. You might also use filter options and try to get closer to answer your question and work with that data to gain insights. Now this is all fine to a certain degree, but what if you have more sales data? So for example, we have 100 records here. Here is a sheet with 50,000 sales records. And right away, you'll notice that it's not as responsive anymore. So when we add, for example, our sum again, takes a little while to calculate, especially if you pull this over to other rows. You get this bar up here. Or if you're trying to enter your filters, you sometimes feel that the application is stuck and sometimes you don't have an indication if it's actually still working. So right now I would reload. No, it did it. No, it didn't do it. Let's see if you can still get the filter to work. I'm gonna go up and let's click on filter here. In general, everything is slower and sometimes even unworkable with a larger data set. So here we go, but always this bar shows us the progress. I don't really want to start putting a pivot table on here because that would probably take a while. Now this is a scenario where you might want to look at BigQuery. There are also other methods of analyzing big data. This is in nowhere really big data in that sense, but it shows where the spreadsheet applications sometimes hit a limit. So let's enter Google BigQuery. As I said, you need to have a Google Cloud Platform account. You create a project up here in the toolset down here with all the different offerings and services of the Google Cloud Platform. You want to look for BigQuery and open it. Once you're in, you can see here we are in a sandbox. We can upgrade to have the full BigQuery experience, but we'll leave need to leave a credit card in order to do so. This sandbox account is a bit limited, but it will suffice for our demo today. So what are we looking at right here? This is the BigQuery interface. On the left side here, we can see our cloud project and we can add some data to it. So first thing that we would need to do is create a dataset. Let's call this demo. I'm going to skip all these different configurations and go to my dataset. So here's my demo, and now I can create different kind of tables. Now we can create an empty table, but then nothing would be in it. We want to create a table where we upload our data. Obviously, there are many different forms of feeding data into BigQuery. You can do this, for example, with other services like Google Cloud Storage or Google Cloud Bigtable. You can also upload data from Drive or build a cloud function that pushes data automatically in. You could also utilize third-party platforms such as Supermetrics or Ovux BI to pull your data from Facebook's Ad API and fill it all into Google BigQuery, or utilize the Open BigQuery API. It really depends on your workflow. For our demo, I will just upload our file. It's a CSV file, so the file format is CSV right here. And then we can give it a name and put in the schema. Now the schema is very important because we need to model after what we have in these columns right here and what data type it actually is. So for example, this would be a string. We have floating values here as well, numbers obviously, but BigQuery already can auto-detect that schema if it's correctly filled into the CSV. So we'll go ahead and simply create this table. Also skip all of these different advanced options. Won't go into detail today. And then it will create a load job if it's a bigger file. And now our demo dataset is created. By the way, if you want to get access to this demo dataset, I just downloaded it from this website e4excel.com, and we have here sales records that go into the millions. Although with our sandbox we can only upload 10 MB, so you need to stay with the 50,000 or the 100,000 right here. And now we have our sales records in here and we can see the schema. These are the different columns that were detected, and when we look at preview, we see all that data that was filled in. And it's basically the same format that we see in our sheet. Now what can we do with this table? Well, we can query it, and this is where SQL comes in. In this window, you put in your query, which is based on SQL, and then you can run all kinds of different operations in query for data. What would this look like? Let's click on this query table, and this is a simple SQL statement. Select what you want to select from the schema right here. Well, we can put in the asterisk to select everything from this table and limit your output 1000. Let's run this. And after just 1 second, we get our data back and we can see the result right here. It's basically the same table as we have selected everything. But you can obviously, if you know SQL and the power of it, pretty much do any kind of analysis that you would also be able to do in a sheet. So let's go over here and actually format this a little bit so it's a little bit better readable. And here you can see the keywords that SQL uses. If you want to learn more about SQL, I'm going to have some resources linked up down below. But here you can go ahead, for example, only select certain columns here. I can actually go back to the sales record, and instead of the asterisk, you just click on the schema that we want. So for example, let's get these different rows here, and you see this is what is being entered. We click run again and we only get these certain columns back. Obviously we can also do stuff like we did before. So when we want to calculate all the total profit, we can put in formulas like sum, run this again, and we get our result back. We could also order our data or group it together. So for example, grouping together would be, let's go back to our example here. Let's actually group the sum total profits by region. Put a comma in here, and then we need to have a keyword called group by and region. Let's run this. And here we go. We get the results per region. Now, this is a table name that was automatically created. We can also create our own column name. And transform our data this way. Now, if you run this analysis more often, you can obviously save this query. You can also save the results if you want to push the data somewhere else. And another interesting one is to save this view. This will actually create another table within your BigQuery dataset based on the query that you have just written. So let's put in profit by region. We actually need to also, because this will actually create another table that we can now use. It only has 2 columns as the schema data. And we can utilize this data even further and query for it and see what's inside, work with it more, and so on. So if you want, Google BigQuery for a large dataset can be super valuable to utilize to do some different analysis with SQL if you are very familiar with that. I'm actually a big fan of transforming my data inside of Google BigQuery, so it's in the right format, but still leave it kind of raw, just like this, and then utilize the power of Data Studio. Because what we can do is simply go to Explore Data right here, and it will open up our data set if we are connected with the accounts in Data Studio's Data Explorer. Now, this is not a full dashboard. It is simply one chart that you can choose right here. And then, like in Data Studio, you can go ahead and add dimensions or metrics. And if you want, you could also utilize filters up here to say you only want to look at one certain area of your data set. Now you can run any kind of analysis right here. You could also build calculated fields, blend data with other data together, or use custom functions within your custom metrics that you create in Data Studio. Once you are happy with your data set, so for example, let's go back and actually try to recreate from our region. We have our total profit. It has been already summed up. Let's get around and delete the record count here and make a nice bar chart out of it. If you like what you're seeing, you can also save this with the data source and integrate it into a new report. Once it's saved, create a new report from here. You add this to your report, and then your visualization should appear inside of your Data Studio report. And obviously you can create more graphics around this with the new data source of BigQuery. So this was a quick overview on the capabilities of BigQuery. Obviously there's much more to explore by yourself inside of the BigQuery interface. Google has a great documentation here. And although we just went through a very little example here, BigQuery is capable of analyzing, for example, Google Analytics raw data, your Facebook ads account, or many other different data sources. You can also add one of the public data sets to your BigQuery account. And then, happy analyzing.
All right, so there you have it. This is a quick overview on Google BigQuery. I hope you now know what it is. And if you have worked with Google BigQuery already, then I'd love to know from you in the comments down below what your specific use cases are. And as mentioned at the beginning, if you want to dive deeper into Google BigQuery, we have a course that we are working on within our Measure Masters community. You can find the link down below. Or if you're not interested in that, you can just stay tuned to this channel because we are sure to bring out more tutorials on everything measurement every week. Definitely subscribe right over there so you don't miss out. Now, my name is Julian. Till next time.